happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a reaction to the Black Crowes, first time on this channel, and their album, The Southern Harmony and Musical Companion, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Trucker Kev. Thank you, Trucker Kev. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out the Patreon link below or the patron link on the end screen. We could not make it without them. All right, I only know the Black Crowes from a couple of songs. I'll get to that later, but let's do some background. I always like to see what the patron has to think. Trucker Kev knows a ton about music. Here's what he says about the Black Crowes and about this album. He says, after lighting up the rock and roll world with the classic-infused Stones, Rod Stewart, the Faces, and more style, licks, and tunage with their debut called Shake Your Moneymaker, which is the one I know, giving great radio FM hits such as Twice as Hard, Jealous Again, infusing the MTV years with the ever so great She Talks to Angels, and MTV fan favorite, fun Otis Redding cover of Hard to Handle. Chris Robinson and his brother Rich, along with the band, came on with their sophomore effort, which to me is even a little bit stronger, Kev says. And that's what the critics said too when I researched this album, that this album is actually better than the debut. It didn't sell as well, but most think it's better. This also features new guitarist Mark Ford on the board, replacing Jeff Cease, who was fired after one album, bringing in a keyboardist named Eddie Harsh, adding more to the great mix. This is a fantastic album start to finish, Kev says, featuring more FM radio great stuff and favorites such as Remedy, the ever so laid back, gentle rocking Thorn in My Pride, and a whole lot more great straightforward rock and roll. My Morning Song, Black Moon Creeping. Excellent production also. They would continue on with one more album called Amorico, and then the infighting would begin between the brothers that would drive them apart for many years. Chris Robinson would form his own little band, and a whole lot more. Now we're going to find out the fighting was going on right now, but they were still together. Little background on the Crowes, a little more if you don't know about them. They're an American rock band formed in Atlanta, Georgia in 1984. They have 8 studio albums, 4 live albums, and several charting singles. They've sold more than 30 million albums worldwide. This is their second studio album, released in May of 1992. Went to 1 in the US, 2 in the UK. The album's name, which is interesting, right? It comes from the full name of the Southern Harmony, an influential 1835 hymnal compiled by William Walker. The Black Crowes were, of course, coming off the 1990 Shake Your Moneymaker, which went 5 times platinum. And we already talked about the singles from there, and those are the songs I know, right? Hard to Handle and She Talks to Angels, because they were all over MTV. This album was recorded in only 8 days and straight to a 24-track tape. It saw the exit of original member Jeff Cease at the lead guitar position, the addition of Eddie Harsh, and a new permanent keyboard position. Kev already mentioned these. And most importantly, the drafting of lead guitar player Mark Ford, who would add to that certain something to the Black Crowes that took it from great to spectacular, is what some people would say. Recorded after significant time on the road, opening for bands like ZZ Top and Aerosmith, and lead singer Chris Robinson famously saying, kind of like deriding bands about selling out to corporate beer sponsors, and they wanted to headline shows themselves. It was a combination of being pissed off, having something to prove, they said, and being very tight from so many shows they played that made this such a great musical work. 25 songs have been written before heading in the studio, but Mark Ford was still trying to gel with the Robinson brothers, right? They're just going to the studio and trying to lay something down, who, along with being super driven and having something to prove, were at each other's throats constantly. It wasn't unusual for a studio session to devolve into an outright fist fight between the two. There's a record on this album as it featured 4 album rock #1 hits, previous records by the great Tom Petty in 1989 with 3. In 2006, this album was ranked at number 100 on Guitar World's 100 Greatest Guitar Albums of All Time. All tracks are written by Chris Robinson and Rich Robinson, except for Noted, which is only going to be the album closer, which is a Marley cover. All right. The music will not be in the video, but it will be at a Vimeo link below. So as I always say, follow along with this. Click on that link. Let's get this thing started. You see it below, the album opener, Sting Me. It was the second single, one of those 4 songs that reached #1 on the US Billboard Album Rocks chart. It was there for 2 weeks. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Trucker Kev. Sting Me, or Stang Me, as it sounds when Chris is singing. A great backing vocalist there, right? Just adding a richness to this. The star of this for me is the guitar, and I don't know. Guitar is attributed to Chris, which I'm going to guess it's a little lesser with him. So it's probably his brother Rich and Mark Ford, but that guitar work is fantastic. Drumming is fine. You got Steve Gorman on the drum, Johnny Colt on the bass, and Eddie Harsh on the keys, as we talked about. But what a way to start this album out, right? Just a musical tour de force, probably about drug use. I'm going to get to that in the next song, Remedy, of kind of why they wrote this album. But Sting Me, I think he's talking somewhat about heroin needles in some places and the legalization of drugs. But we'll get to that. But that is that's a fantastic way to start an album. Next up, we have Remedy, that reached #1 also on the U.S. Billboard album rock charts, but this time for 11 weeks. It peaked at number 48 on the actual Billboard Hot 100, 24 in the UK, which became their highest charting single there, and entered the top 10 in New Zealand and Norway. In a December 2013 interview, so we're fast forwarding quite a few years, Chris explained that it, quote, "it is a song that essentially is just about freedom." He said, "We were into the whole idea that the war on drugs was just silly. It was this asinine concept to me and millions of other people. So that song to me is about freedom, plain and simple. Just put in a rock and roll framework." So this was kind of their answer, the whole album, to the war on drugs, which if you're around then, that's all you heard about. I mean, drugs are bad for you, but it got taken to a point of like, it's just what we did to the inner cities and all that stuff. It's a long story, but interesting that they wrote this because of that. I think I might know this song. This is a time in my life where I kind of stepped away from rock music for the first time in my life. So I really wasn't in tune by the time this album came out with a lot of what was going on for a few years here. So I think I know this song. Remedy. I think it's probably going to be a broken record on here, no pun intended, but the musicianship is phenomenal. The drumming, the guitar work is just fantastic. And the backing vocals add so much to it. They just add this layer to it. Like Chris's vocals, fine. It really fits this type of music, but those backing vocals, man, adds a richness to it. But the song itself, great. I did not know this song at all, but I can see why it stayed #1 at 11 weeks on the album chart, on the album rock chart. So fantastic. 2 for 2, right? There's 10 songs on this album. Next up, we got Thorn in My Pride. All right, Thorn in My Pride. Not nearly as hard rocking in some places, right? There's a little bit of change and dichotomy of this song because Mark comes in with this, and I know it's Mark because I read about this song. Mark comes in with this guitar solo that works perfectly in the song, although it's kind of out of place, right? Because the song's real chill, but it just works to bring it all together. Keyboard work by Eddie is really good. Shines more on this, especially at the start and then towards the end. And Chris's voice, a real showcase for his voice on this. The backing vocalists are there, but not quite as prominent. And it just really fits his voice. You can hear it really go without as much guitar stuff on there. So, I mean, we're 3 for 3 on this. I mean, I don't know which one of these songs I like the best. Now we got Bad Luck, Blue Eyes, Goodbye. Bad Luck, Blue Eyes, Goodbye. So the lyrics on the other songs are fine. I mean, they're nothing spectacular because they're not really meant to be. It's more a band that you're going to enjoy just the musicianship of them, right? And the power of Chris's vocals. But this song has a little more meaning to the lyrics. He's basically talking to a girl that has shunned him. That's why you get bad luck, blue eyes, goodbye, instead of good luck, when you leave somebody. Like the pre-chorus, like it's such a simple suicide, a second chance never tried. Or why don't understand, I need a helping hand. So that's why bad luck, blue eyes, goodbye. And the backing vocals come in on that. I like that too. So you think that you've seen it all. Is that a fact? So out your mouth, the dictionary spouts about this and that. You got your do's, your don'ts, because and why. I don't trust no one who don't take their own advice. And we get that bad luck, blue eyes, goodbye. The song has such a slow roll to it that it just works, right? It kind of draws you in. Like part of you feels like this should be sped up a little bit, but the slowness actually works for it. So yeah, I mean, I thought everything worked on that. And I thought Chris's vocals again were fantastic. We're gonna finish off the first side with Sometimes Salvation. All right, Sometimes Salvation, just another one where Chris is all into it. I don't exactly know what the lyrics mean. I mean, he's hanging out with someone who's led him down the wrong path is basically what it means. But you can lead a horse to water, but faith is another matter. So don't you surrender, because sometimes salvation in the eye of the storm. Like he just doesn't really finish off lyrics sometimes. So I don't really know, but I enjoyed it, and that's half of the album already. Next up, we have the only song that's under 4 minutes on the entire album, and it's 3:59. We got Hotel Illness. Hotel Illness, a shorter song lyrically about heroin use, right? And basically saying, don't trust me because I'll lie to you, but he's getting into the heroin. It's got a blues harp on here played by Chris. You ask what a blues harp is? It's just a harmonica, man, but it has a little richer sound to it, but I thought that really lended to the song and kind of differentiated it from everything we've heard so far. So thought that was a good offering to kick off the second side of the traditional album. Now we got Black Moon Creeping. Black Moon Creeping, which you got buried in that backyard. So he's kind of asking about those secrets, right? Blues harp is in there again. Guitar work is fantastic. Backing vocalist. I mean, it's just, it fits with the rest of the album. Just a really good sounding song. And we got No Speak, No Slave. No Speak, No Slave. The best guitar work on this album, and that is saying something. Mark and Rich are just shredding it on here. And I mean, that's the highlight of this thing. He's basically talking about, I think, people who run their mouths all the time but don't want to do anything about their situation. But you want to be heard. None of us understand a word. No, no, no. And you want to be free. Yes, you do now. They don't speak like a slave to me. I think it's about politicians and stuff. They're policemen who break the law. Politicians rise and fall. So all these different things. But that guitar work on this is just a jam, man. So we got 2 songs left. Got My Morning Song. My Morning Song. I think the best song on here to showcase everybody's musicianship, right? The drumming from Steve. I thought the bass work from Johnny Colt came in here. And then there was different guitar tones coming throughout, blended in there. The background vocals were just fantastic on here. So I thought, I mean, the song itself, you know, lyrically, who knows? I think he was in a drug stupor, but it just really worked musicianship-wise. He wanted to have something to showcase everybody on here. This is a song. We're going to finish this off with a Bob Marley cover on here. Time Will Tell. All right, Time Will Tell. The Bob Marley cover, it was fine. I thought Chris's voice sounded good on here. A little nice backing, almost choir type effect. It's the song on here that probably doesn't fit, right? Because of musicianship, it's not needed on the song, but it just doesn't really fit with the tone of the album. But I mean, I do like it. It brings a Marley song to the masses. Remember, this went to #1 in the US and 2 in the UK. So, I mean, I get it. Maybe not finish off the album this way, but I don't know. I mean, it's a small quibble. It's a fine song. And on that note, let's get to my favorite tracks. Honorable mention, Bad Luck, Blue Eyes, Goodbye, the 4th track, and No Speak, No Slave. Just that guitar work on there was fantastic. My faves are going to be the first 3 songs on here, Sting Me, Remedy, and Thorn in My Pride. Those are absolutely fantastic. Now we're going to go to my overall score. Kev gives it a 9.25. As I always say, the patron that brings it obviously loves it, or they wouldn't bring it. So I totally get that. Kev's got years and years and years with this album. I've got 1 listen. So for me, I'm still going to be really high, especially for what I grade first time I listen. I'm going to be at an 8.5. I think the musicianship is top notch. The lyrics and what the songs are about, kind of open to interpretation, more of an abstract protest, like they said, of the war on drugs. A few little things on there on relationships, but the musicianship, the guitar work by Rich and Mark in particular are fantastic, man. And Chris's vocals, very powerful and fits this style of music, as I mentioned earlier, so well. So let me know what you think of this album down below. Is it better than their debut, like the critics think, like Kev thinks? Or do you prefer the debut? Let me know what else I should listen to from them. And until next time, guys, I will see you.